All right, welcome to another deep dive. This time we're going where art meets philosophy. We've got a YouTube video and a piece of an art book, both about one painting, clue, and self. We're going to break it down, see what it says about us, about people.
Yeah, just two words in the title, clue and self. And it already makes you think, doesn't it?
It does. Both sources, right away, they point to those two orbs in the painting. One's all like rough, textured. The video even says it kind of looks like a planet, maybe even a skull.
A skull, huh? We'll have to come back to that later.
Yep.
The other orb, it's smoother and darker, but the main thing is they're not just sitting there. The book says swirling about the brushstrokes all around them, lots of energy, like they're connected somehow.
It makes sense with the title Clue and Self. It's what the book calls a symbolic duality, which, I mean, it sounds fancy, but it just means it's about two opposite ideas and how they work together.
Exactly. It's not just two shapes. It's like the artist is making us think about how clue and self are always pushing and pulling against each other.
Yeah.
And those brushstrokes, they're like that push and pull, like a whirlwind or something.
That swirling does make it complicated, doesn't it? The YouTube video, they bring in Zen Buddhism. They say the clue could be us always looking for answers. And the self, that's about letting go of needing to be in control, what they call the ego.
Like the painting's asking, what if we just accept we don't know everything? The book, it talks about mystery and consciousness too. It says the way it's painted with all that swirling, it's like our sense of self is kind of hidden, always being shaped by things we don't get.
So both are about figuring ourselves out, but in totally different ways. One's searching, one's letting go. What do you think is more, I don't know, more interesting?
The thing is, the painting seems to fit both ideas. It's not saying one is right. It's like it wants us to consider them both, you know.
Makes you think, right? We get so hung up on answers, maybe it's the questions that matter. But they both talk about what those orbs could mean, don't they?
Oh yeah, definitely. That YouTube video, it connects it to that no mind idea in Zen Buddhism.
Yeah.
Like being in the moment,
Mm.
not overthinking things, just accepting what is, not needing to explain it all.
That's a powerful idea. I mean, think about it. Today, we're overloaded with information. Everyone's got to have it all figured out. And the book, it kind of agrees. It says we can never fully know ourselves because we're always changing, right? Shaped by all these things, other people, things we experience, even the mysteries of our own, subconscious.
Exactly. It's like we're always moving between what we know and what we don't. That's
Got
part
it.
of who we are.
Okay, this is getting pretty deep. But wait, the YouTube video, they bring in another whole thing, existentialism. They say the clue might be that human need to find meaning in all the chaos. And the self, that represents the limits of what we can understand.
Right back to that duality idea. The painting's not going to tell us the meaning of life, but it shows how much we want to know and how much is just, well, unknowable.
So we've got Zen Buddhism, mysteries of the mind, existentialism, all mixed up in this one painting. Two orbs, some brushstrokes, and it can hold so much.
That's what abstract art can do, make you feel all those things and think about big ideas.
Absolutely. Let's get back to the painting itself for a minute. That art book excerpt, it talks about what art styles influenced this one.
Great. It mentions abstract expressionism and surrealism. They both used brushwork to make you feel things like a dream, like in Clue and Self, all those swirling strokes that create depth and movement.
And the book names some artists. Anselm Kiefer, Leonora Carrington. They dealt with similar ideas, depth, dreamlike spaces, that back and forth between what's conscious and subconscious.
That surrealism connection, it adds something else, doesn't it?
Mm.
They were all about the unconscious, dreams, those hidden parts of ourselves. Maybe the swirling here, it's not just chaos outside, but what's going on in our minds too.
That's a really cool way to think about it. Our inside world and the outside world, they're always shaping each other. Sometimes it's hard to tell what's real and what we're imagining.
And that not knowing for sure, that's what keeps you looking at this painting. It doesn't tell you one thing. It makes you keep looking, questioning, and finding your own meaning.
So far, Zen Buddhism, existentialism, surrealism, it's like it can hold all of them at the same time.
Makes you wonder, right? Does that make it confusing? Or is it saying something really deep about art, about how we figure ourselves out?
What do you think? Is the meaning already there, or does it change depending on who's looking at it and what they bring to it?
That's a good one to think about. Maybe the meaning isn't something you find, but something that comes out as you look and think about it.
I like that. It's not giving answers, it's making us part of figuring it out. Speaking of figuring things out, both sources seem to hint at something else, something maybe a bit darker. Remember that thing about the lighter orb, how it could be a skull?
Yeah, and the book mentions Vanitas art. That's usually about death and how life doesn't last forever. They say it's subtle, a metaphor maybe, but it's there.
So while we're thinking about big ideas, figuring ourselves out, the meaning of life, there's this little reminder that we don't live forever.
Could be a way to bring those big ideas back down to earth, to what it means to be human. Makes it more real, more urgent. Reminds us we have limited time to find meaning and create.
Wow, that changes the whole feel of it. It's like it's saying, yeah, go explore, create, find out who you are, but don't forget, time is precious.
Exactly. It's not just thinking about these ideas, it's about how they make us live our lives, what we choose to do with the time we have.
This is a lot to take in. Before we get totally lost, let's take a breath. Think about all we've learned about clue and self. Zen Buddhism, existentialism, surrealism, even the idea that we die, and we're not even done yet.
We'll be back soon to dig even deeper into clue and self, and we'll see if it connects to the creative process itself.
Until then, let those swirling brushstrokes and those mysterious orbs sink in. We'll be back to pick up where we left off in a bit. And we're back. Man, talking about all those orbs and swirls, it's like I'm in the painting. So where do we go from here?
Well, we've talked about philosophy and art history, right? Maybe now we should think about how this clue and self, how it connects to being creative.
Yeah, both of our sources kind of touch on that. The YouTube video, they use the painting itself as the example. They say the clue could be like that first spark of inspiration, that energy you get when you have a new idea. And the self, that's the artist's like inner world where that idea starts to grow.
Like when a song pops into your head, or you suddenly think of a story. Exciting, but also scary because you don't know where it'll go.
The video, they're big on that uncertainty. They say those brushstrokes, they could be the artist struggling with the ideas, trying to make sense of them. Makes me think of how messy creating something can be. All those dead ends, then suddenly, boom, you figure something out.
The book, it uses this phrase I really like. The interplay of external stimuli and internal reflection that drives creativity. It's saying that what we create comes from the world around us and our own way of seeing things.
So it's not just about getting an idea, it's what you do with it, how you use your experiences and knowledge to make that idea into something real.
And maybe that tension between clue and self in the painting, it's like that back and forth when you're creating something. You need that first spark, the clue, to get going. But then it's you, yourself, that makes the idea into something unique.
It seems like both sources, when they talk about creativity, they're more interested in the journey, not just the finished product.
Yeah, it's not just about getting to the end, whether it's a painting, a song, whatever. It's about enjoying the process, the mistakes, the unexpected stuff you find along the way.
Those brushstrokes, they're saying creating is like life messy and unpredictable, and that's okay.
Yeah, being okay with not knowing what's going to happen, that's important. Often when you're lost, that's when the coolest things happen.
Love that idea. You got to be willing to explore, to try things out, even mess up to find those moments of inspiration.
And that brings us back to no mind, right?
Right.
Letting go of trying to control everything, letting the process just happen.
So instead of trying to get the right answer, make the perfect thing, maybe it's about being in the moment, trusting that you'll figure it out as you go.
Exactly. Being open to possibilities, letting yourself be surprised.
Okay, so we've seen how this painting can be about figuring ourselves out, about the mysteries of the mind, even about dying. Now it's about creativity, too. It's amazing one painting can hold all that.
It shows how powerful abstract art is. It's like a mirror, reflecting back our thoughts, experiences, questions.
It's not giving us answers, it's giving us a way to explore our own ideas, make our own meaning.
And that's what makes it so interesting. There's always something new to find, some new connection to make.
But didn't you say there was one more thing, something about the lighter orb that we needed to come back to?
Oh, yeah. That idea that maybe it looks like a skull, that hint of, death that both sources mention.
Right. And the book tied it to Vanitas art, which is all about how we die, how nothing lasts forever. What does that add to clue and self?
I think it balances out all the philosophy and creativity talk. It reminds us that even while we're searching, creating, trying to understand, we're not going to live forever.
It's like the painting saying, yeah, explore, create, learn, but remember, time is running out.
Exactly. That doesn't mean our searching and creating is pointless. It just makes it more important. It pushes us to live and create with purpose, knowing we don't have unlimited time.
This deep dive has been wild. We've talked about symbolisms and Buddhism, existentialism, surrealism, the whole creative process, even death. It's crazy how one painting can make you think about so much.
And to think, it all started with clue and self.
Hmm.
Two little words that opened up a whole world of ideas.
Before we wrap up, I want to mention one more thing. Both the YouTube video and the book, They both seem to say that it's important for each person to come up with their own understanding of art.
Yeah, that's really important. When it comes to something like clue and self, what it means to you, that's what matters.
Mhm.
It depends on your experiences, what you believe, how you see the world.
So even though we've talked about a lot of interpretations today, the main thing is there's no right answer. That's the beauty of art. It can speak to each of us in a different way.
And that's what makes talking about it so great. Sharing what we think, listening to other interpretations, it helps us understand and appreciate the art even more.
So, as we get to the end of our deep dive, I have a question for you, our listener. What stands out to you most about clue and self? What do you see in those swirls, those different orbs that hint of death?
We've given you our thoughts. Now it's your turn to explore. Let the painting talk to you and see where it takes you.
We'll be back in just a sec to finish up and give you one last thing to think about. But for now, just sit with those questions and see what comes up. Back again for our final thoughts on clue and self. I hope you've had some time to think about the painting, what it means for you. We've been all over the place. Zen philosophy, how we create even death.
It really is amazing. One piece of art, and look at all the stuff it's made us think about. Art is powerful that way. Makes you think about yourself.
It has been quite a journey, hasn't it? So, as we wrap things up, do you have a final thought for our listeners? Something to keep them pondering even after we're done here.
Well, we've been talking about this duality, crew, and self, right? But what if? What if we threw in another element? Imagine like another orb, something totally new coming into that swirling energy. What would it be? How would it change things, with the clue and self that are already there?
Whoa, that's a really cool idea. What would that third orb even be about? Would it make the whole painting feel more balanced? Or would it mess things up? Would it shine more light on the other orbs or make them even harder to see?
Yeah, exactly. It's like an open question, something for our listeners to play with, using what we've talked about and seeing what they come up with.
I like that. We're not just ending the conversation here. We're giving the listener a chance to be creative too, to add their own ideas to clue and self.
That's it. In the end, art and life too, I guess. It's
Yeah.
something we figure out together, sharing our experiences and thoughts and interpretations.
So as we say goodbye, we'll leave you with this image, clue and self, but with that third orb that you create in your mind. What does it mean to you? How does it change the feeling, the meaning of the whole painting? Let those thoughts swirl around, see where they take you. Until next time, keep exploring and keep asking those big questions.